Hi everyone, good afternoon, evening, or morning, depending on wherever you are. We're super happy to have you here at this edition of the Continuous Testing Meetup. September, last day of September. I hope you have a good month and looking forward to what we're going to do all together in October. As is tradition already, we are going to have our 5-minute vocabulary section with Oksana. She's going to tell us today about exploratory testing, and let's hear it from her. Oksana, thank you for being here, and the stage is yours.
Thank you, Diego. So let's start. I will share my screen. I hope you can see it. Yeah. Okay, so I'm Oksana, and as always, we have 5-minute vocabulary session with me. Today, we are going to speak about tools for exploratory testing and exactly about heuristics and mnemonics. So let's start. So as you know, I try to find definition based on ISTQB. So ISTQB, it is International Software Testing Qualification Board. So it is actually a qualifying program for everyone who is interested in software testing, like software testers, developers, project managers, business analysts, and all people who are looking to enhance their skills. But in case I can't find any definition in ISTQB glossary, for sure I'm looking for another resources. So if you are interested in exploratory testing and in heuristics or mnemonics, you can find some information in Agile Testers Foundation extension, in mobile app testers, and also in usability testers in ISTQB syllabus. So, but let's begin. We already spoke about exploratory testing. Just to remember, if you want to learn a little bit more about it, or you skipped some session, please have a look at the session from last year about a test charter, what does it mean and how you can create it. And one session from this year June 30, about micro-heuristic. So it is a special type of heuristic. So today we are going to speak in general what heuristics mean and how you can use it. So as always, let's start with definitions. So at first, a general definition about exploratory testing. It is an approach to testing whereby the testers dynamically design and execute tests based on their knowledge, exploration of the test item, and the results of previous tests. And the next definition for today is heuristic. I found two definitions, one based on ISTQB glossary and another one from Cambridge Dictionary. So the first definition, heuristic, is a generally recognized rule of thumb that helps to achieve a goal. So you can find this definition in ISTQB glossary. And the next definition from Cambridge Dictionary, it is a method of learning, of solving problems that allow people to discover things themselves and learn from their own experience. So the last definition from Cambridge Dictionary, it's not related to testing. You can also use heuristic for other parts in your life. But let's look how heuristic can help us actually in testing. So they give us the guidance how to execute tests or how to evaluate their results. For example, they help you to decide what to do, what to test, how you can do it, how you can test, but also heuristic leave room to learn about the object. The main idea of heuristic is in finding issues, but without giving an exact way to follow. Because we're speaking about exploratory testing, so we explore the system, so we can't have the exact way to follow. So we are looking in a different parts of our application and discover our program. And mnemonics is a special variant of heuristic. So in an easy to remember form, it is a word where every letter represents a technique, testing method or a focal point of testing. We will look a little bit later some examples of it. So what advantages and disadvantages we can have if we use heuristic and mnemonics? So a good point, so for almost all testing activities or testing challenges, you can find heuristics in internet. From other point, and is one disadvantage of heuristic, so you will find a really endless number of heuristic, and it makes it challenging to select an appropriate one for the given task or for your project. The other advantage is that heuristic can help to remember the tester of relevant aspects of the testing. So if you do exploratory testing, you can use test charter, for example, to write what you're going to test or what you already done. And heuristic can navigate you to do appropriate or to test appropriate aspects of your application. But a disadvantage of it, it's really up to the tester to define how the aspects given by the heuristic can be tested. So it depends on qualification of tester about soft skills and technical skills, how good or how bad heuristics or mnemonics will be used. So how you can use heuristics? So actually you can use it in two different ways. So the first way is to define test goals for exploratory testing sheets. So about exploratory testing sheets, please have a look at test charter. You can find a video recording from it. So in this case, for each aspect of choosing heuristic, you will create a one session sheet. And the next way to use heuristic, you can use it during the session for ideas generation, what you can do as a next. So what is your next test step? Some examples is CRUD, interrupt, so to test sign off, close or restart, as if deport or I slice it up, and many others. So just let's look to the most popular one. So we will start with the oldest one, and I think the really popular one, it is heuristic root, create, read, update, delete. So this heuristic comes from the database relation, database word, but you can also use it for exploratory testing of your application. Just try to creating, viewing, updating, or deleting each type of entities in your software. So the next heuristic that I want to present to you is SF Depot or San Francisco Depot. It was created by James Bach. You can find more information about it in his work heuristic test strategy model. Here just a short briefly description of it. So S means structure, so you test anything related to the structure like menus, file structure, documentation structure. F means function, so in this case, you test anything related to application functionality like functions, calculation, error handling, etc. D for data, so as you can understand, so you test here anything related to handle data like input data, output data, or temporary storages. By interfaces, you test anything related to interfaces like API or GUI or command line interfaces. Platform is for platform, like you test anything needs to run the application, but which is not the part of the application itself, like hardware, operational system, network. And the last letter T means for time, like so you test anything related to the time, like nightly batch runs, time of execution, or annually batch runs. So how you can actually use it? So if, as I already told, so you have two ways to use heuristics. So in this case, you can, for example, create one test sheet for each aspect, like one test sheet for the first exploratory testing session for structure, the next exploratory testing session, and the next aspect you will test function, the next one interfaces, etc. So it is one way how you can use it. And the last heuristic, or else mnemonic for today is ice last up fun. So if you are in mobile app testing, please have a look. You can find a fully detailed description of this heuristic in internet. It was created for mobile app testing by Jonathan Cole. So he adapted the heuristic San Francisco depot from James Bach, what we already saw, for mobile app testing. So it works in the similar way. Let's look the first one. So I for input. So in this case, you will test any variants of inputs like built-in keyboard or keypad, touch screen synchronization with other devices, or you can also hold the device differently when inputting. Like if you have an application, you can use it like straight, I will take my phone, like straight up or sideways or just upside down and see what's happened. Just be creative when you use it. So thank you very much. I hope you learned something new for you. If you have any question, just feel free to contact me. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Oksana. That was pretty insightful. Now trying to find, okay. I have a different monitor setup since a week. Cool. So thanks for that. Before moving on, a few announcements and things that we want to share with you. 1 month ago, we had the meetup with Kai, and it was very insightful. I didn't have good internet connection that day, but then I watched the recording, and Kai shared like so many different tools you can use to improve your daily process of automating things. So if you head to continuoustestingmeetup.com right now, and you will see that the video is there and all the tools he shared, like pretty cool things as simple as creating a GIF to report a bug. Like he shared all the tools he was using. So that was very practical and tips you could use right away after watching the video. Also, for the ones who are around Germany or maybe live nearby and can travel to Germany. So one of the, I think, biggest testing conferences in Europe is happening again in person, well, hybrid, in person and virtually. But if you're around, you could come. So Agile Testing Days is happening again. This is a conference done by Trendic. And if you want to have a discount in the entrance ticket, that's the discount code. So please feel free to use it. This will be shared also, maybe Oksana, you can put it in the chat so people can have it, and then you can reuse it. And also from our other sponsor, Sauce Labs, we are doing a webinar in a couple of weeks about Selenium 4. So the name is So You Think You're Ready for Selenium 4, because on October 13, we're going to have different speakers, mostly all of them contributors to the Selenium project. Simon is going to be there, Titus, Marcos, I will be there, and Lindsay will be there with us. So Selenium 4 actually today, the second release candidate went out, and if no bugs are reported in the next 1-2 weeks, that will be the final, and hopefully by mid-October the final release of Selenium 4 will be out. So maybe that webinar will be already announcing the release or not, so who knows. So please join. I will also paste that link in the chat if you are interested to join. And I think that's it for the announcements and things we wanted to share, because the main star today, Simon. Welcome, Simon. Thank you for being here. Simon's going to share with us a super interesting topic, because I'm not going to share many details because I read the abstract, but in general, it's incredible that this type of lack of culture of quality is still lacking in many places. And I think Simon is going to share with us many interesting ways of how to embrace it and to think about it. So yeah, without further ado, thank you, Simon, for being here, for taking the time and being this time in the evening. to share all your knowledge with us. So welcome. I will stop sharing my screen so you can take it from here.
Hello, thank you everyone. Really nice to be here. Let me just get my slides up. Please tell me if you can see these. Can you see the slides?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah. So as Diego just said, for me, it's not so much a shock that places still aren't there on that journey. I think sometimes the view that everyone's 10,000 miles ahead and that's where they actually are is quite common. I think it's the ones that are advanced that speak at conferences. You get very few talks about companies still in waterfall models and how they work. But my experience working around the UK is, I'd say 60% of companies in the UK are still probably in a waterfall or a pretending to be agile model, and not doing things as advanced as we'd like to be doing. But let's get into that. Let me just introduce myself a bit more first and sort of give you some insights into me. So this is me and my little family. This is quite an old picture now. My eldest is now 7, youngest is 4. I am a senior test manager at EasyJet. I lead up the digital test teams and the data science testing area, and also any projects that are end-to-end cross-cutting across all of EasyJet's technology areas. Are all fall under my remit. We are moving to a more of a sort of quality engineering view and trying to get testers embedded earlier and all the good practices that come with quality engineering, more automation, which is part of the reason why Suman, who's also on the call, I've recently hired her as a test architect to help us build that practice out. So she's going to play a pivotal role in that as well. I'm a host of my own meetup, the meetups of the Ministry of Testing for Buckinghamshire. So we actually held one last night. We had an open mic night last night where we had lots of 5-minute slots for people to talk about testing or sing about testing. We even had someone who joined who didn't know it was a tech event and sang about nutrition for 5 minutes, which was an interesting change to our usual topics. I speak at conferences. Obviously, I've not done a physical conference for a couple of years now, but before then I was talking about leadership and testing at conferences. And I've done quite a few virtual ones as well over the last 18 months. I'm a mental health first aider, so I really do take pride in the fact that I understand the well-being around my teams, and try and make sure that their best interests are looked at first. I'm a STEM ambassador. I'm very passionate about going out into schools and colleges and universities and ensuring that testing is being taught to try and help improve the ability to pull testers into our industry at an early stage. I certainly left university with no knowledge of testing, so I'd like that not to be the case going forward, that we can actually pull graduates out that have a basic understanding of what good testing can be, and then we can help build them, involve them in the industry. I'm also an advocate for neurodiversity. So I have autism in my family, and it really is something I've been pushing to help make workplaces more accessible for those with neurodiverse conditions, to help enable them to get roles in our industries, in tech, where there may be some minds that wouldn't usually apply for jobs, but because they think differently, they'd be really good assets for our companies. So yeah, that's something I'm pushing for as well. And then finally, before we move on to the talk, the one thing that I'm probably most proud of outside of work is the Testing Peers podcast that we've been doing now for about 18 months. We've done 39 episodes. We've had about 10,500 downloads. It's all about testing, leadership, and lots of ranting and tangents as well. So if you like some light-hearted chat about testing or leadership or anything like that, then please give it a listen. Check it out, testingpeers.com, or on your podcast listening apps. So yeah, let's get into the talk then. So before I dive in then, so just a quick notice to say, this is my context. I can't guarantee that you'll be able to pull everything out of this and it will work exactly for you the same way it worked for me. So, I've worked in companies that have been mainly non-agile or have paid lip service to agile, not actually been agile themselves, have done the ceremonies and not a lot else. So, take that in my context. If you can pick some bits out that work for you, then please, by all means, go ahead. But yeah, this is just my story and how it worked for me. So yeah, let's move on to the next one. So my first question to you all is, what is quality? Who's brave enough to give me an answer? You can go in the chat, or it can go, if you fancy coming out on speaker, then please do. No? Everyone too shy? Okay.
Yeah, so let me go give it a try. So
Go ahead.
I would say quality is all about when you are giving a better user experience, and in terms of obviously softwares. So you're planning to have a better user experience, and you're able to reach the right audience when you're making something for them.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable definition. I see value to a stakeholder. Yeah, customer happiness. Yeah, if you have a product which is bug free, but customers don't need it or use it, then it has no value. Quality is when you're meeting the goal. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's put. I did put a definition together just in case anyone didn't come up with anything. So let's just go through that. And it's the measure of whether the software meets the explicit and implicit needs of the customer and their ability to use it successfully. Sorry, I've got 2 angry dogs in the background as well. So yeah, the example I always come to at this point is you can have 2 apps. One can be quite buggy, but customers absolutely love it. And the other one can be absolutely bug free, but no one's using it. But they can have the same functionality, but one's just not being used. And that really, you would question which one's got the greater quality. Hey, shush. Yeah, you would question which one has the greater quality. So that's where the argument of what quality is comes from. So what about a culture? Any thoughts on what a cultural quality is? No, I can just skip on with this if you wish. For me, a cultural quality is that shared cross-team focus of delivering high-quality software that meets the user's needs, and it's the highest priority and within the business, and all the practices across the business support that as well. So it really is that quality first view where you may everyone understands the importance of quality. It's addressed from the very beginning. Everyone makes sure that you're engaged, etc., going forward throughout the project, so that it's never something that's left to the last minute. So before you can start going around building a culture, the first thing for me is always about defining your quality narrative, which really is another way of saying, you know, what is your vision, what is your aspirations, but it's a better way of structuring it. I took the term quality narrative from the book Leading Quality, if any of you have read Leading Quality by Ronald Cummings-Jong and O.A.'s Peer. And I've gone away and defined what I feel a quality narrative is, but this is where I learned that term for the first time. But let's just have another interaction with you all. Are there any misconceptions around QA that you live with every day, or understand from business stakeholders or people outside of your team? I put a few here on the right-hand side, which I've certainly experienced over the years. You know, we test everything. We just write and execute test cases. We just want to break the software. Our role is just to find defects. We're solely responsible for quality. Any others that come to mind? I see the gatekeeper's word's been put in the chat already. Yeah, the production problem as well. You know, and if it fails in production, so who tested it, or why did testing miss it? Yeah. So I mean, yeah, there's lots of things that, you know, are misconceptions, and it's our job to really try and change that narrative around the business. So this is where the idea of a quality narrative comes in. It really is how quality is currently measured and perceived within your company. It's understanding where you are now and where you want to get to. There's 3 key questions that I use in this are: who owns the quality, how is quality done, and what value does it provide? So you do your basic one, you do where you are now, and then you do where do we want to get to? What's our ultimate aim? How do we want testing and quality to be perceived within the organization? Can we identify tangible ways for the value to be visible to everybody? And is quality seen at the level it needs to be? So is it visible to everyone that needs to see it? Are they happy with what they know about it? So here's an example from one of my previous roles. When I joined, this was a very waterfall organization, which I didn't know how waterfall they were at the time when I joined, because that wasn't sold to me. But I very quickly learned where they were. They were seen as the gatekeepers of production. QA, nothing got into production unless QA signed off on it. Oh, hello. So yeah, that was the starting point. We were seen as an expense, which slowed down projects. Therefore, it was very difficult to get any traction before code was cut and the final development build had been done. It was very hard to get any interaction with anybody before that happened. So I remember one day, one of my first days in the business, I'd been introduced to a new project that I'd be sort of leading from a test perspective, and I said to the project manager, "Okay, can I see requirements? Can I sit down with the BA and work through it from a testing perspective?" And they were like, "Oh no, we've got no money for testing to be involved now. You don't get involved until development have finished their code." So I was like, "But okay, so are we only involved for the last month of the project?" "Yes, that's the only time you get. We only have the money to fund testing for the last month of the project." So before I pulled what remaining hair I have out and turned a very dark color, maybe the same color as my t-shirt, I walked away, and not a good experience in your first week to be feeling like what have I done, why have I joined? But I took that as an opportunity to try and change things. That really was the momentum I needed to try and change that attitude. The other thing that came out of that point is really it was seen as a regulatory requirement. It wasn't really we're doing testing to add value. We're going to find issues that wouldn't be found by the developers or anything else. It was more a case of we need to put a tick in the box to say we have QA'd this product, therefore we are going to employ a test team to do thousands of manual tests for the last month of the project, and then we'll let them go again. And that was the vision. That was all they were there for. I was there for 18 months. By the time I left, we were seen as advocates of quality. We were seen as an important part of the puzzle to be engaged as early as possible to ensure quality was built in. And we were providing value by highlighting issues early and identifying ways in which we could address the quality concerns or give people visibility into where quality was. One particular project, it had been run for 2 years. It was so many million over budget. And there was like, we just need to get it out the door. We look, forget how many bugs there are now. Let's just get it out the door. We need to release this so we can get on with the next thing. And the testing team were going, I'm not sure I'm keen on that. There's bugs everywhere. And they were like, well, there's only these P3 bugs everywhere. Why are we worried? And I put together this risk-based testing metric, which I may touch on a bit later on, which weighted different areas of the system based on risk and importance to the solution. And by the time we put it all together and highlighted where the bugs were, the quality achieved value that we put together came out at 25%. And the business suddenly went, yeah, you're right, we can't release that yet. Let's fix those bugs and see the quality expand, and we will then release it at that point. So quality narrative, as I say, create 2 boxes like this as below, and literally list out who owns it now, where is the focus on quality, what's the value of quality, and then do it for the to be as well. And then you've got your as is and to be, and you can then work out the path getting from A to B. So how do you get there? First step for me is the great teams. You need to have someone that's willing to drive it. This doesn't necessarily have to be the manager. This doesn't necessarily have to be a team lead, but somebody who's got the passion within the team to really be the person that puts rockets up people's backsides and starts people moving along. It really is about having that passion for testing, for quality, to try and help move it forward. I went in and I sort of started, talking to the team about testing much more openly than they'd ever been talked to before. I had some values that I'd set, and I really wanted the team to start buying into what we were trying to achieve. So I set these testing values. These are ones that I thought up personally, but then I sat down with the team and worked through whether they felt these were good values or not. And we got to the conclusion that this was a good picture for us to start with, that testing is a mindset, that it isn't just about executing and identifying scenarios. It starts at the beginning of projects. We're involved from the very beginning. The 100% of testing should never be automated. It's all about testing the right things, not testing everything. Automating the right things, not automating everything. and that the test team and testing is valued as highly as other disciplines within an organization. So we workshopped on this for about an hour and a half, and we went through different options around it, and we got to the conclusion that this was a good base for how we put values together. We then shared this, we printed it off and put it on the walls, and got people talking about it, and people come and ask questions about the different graphics and what they meant, and started talking about it more around the business. I then tried to create an environment where it was okay to try things. It was okay to try, attempt something and it fail, and not feel they'd be punished for wasting time because they never got anywhere with it. I tried to give them confidence to speak up and talk at any opportunity about testing, giving them the opportunity to really grow that passion and show what they really care about, and celebrate all the successes we did, no matter how small they were, whether it was just fact we had a successful team meeting where we'd actually agreed something, or whether it had been something much larger than that. Bear with me a second. The dogs are just trying to chew something. Right, sorry. Yeah, so really celebrate every opportunity you can to show the team that you appreciate what they're doing, and really sort of encourage that passion. And by empowering them, they know that you have their back. They feel more confident because they know someone's behind them, supporting them in what they're doing. It was then really about engaging the team. So we talked about, what we needed to do. We'd given people this starting to get the passion, and then it was really about igniting that passion. So we organised an internal community of practice. We got a few external speakers to come in and talk at those events. We started. I started sharing blogs and other videos and online material around the business to try and get people to think about it a bit more, and then tried to lead by example as well. So as I'm talking tonight, try and get people to understand the importance of being part of the community and what the community can do for you as well. And that led to us actually being able to run an internal testing conference where we had 5 or 6 external speakers come and talk, and we got everyone engaged. Everyone was talking in the breaks about testing and all the topics that they were passionate about. We had food laid on. It was just a really good day to get everyone engaged. Everyone took away something different, and it's just really a good point to ignite that passion and then start progressing from there. It was then the next steps were really about finding every opportunity to talk about quality. So I must have spoken at about 4 or 5 all hands in the 18 months I was there, talking about different elements of testing, whether it be the culture of quality, our new automation pieces that we'd put in place, the metrics that we'd built, just any opportunity to say, look, this is the good work the testers are doing. And it really did start to show the business that there was more to us than just a team of people that execute tests at the end of a cycle. We started putting internal blogs on the company blog site, and I also introduced the game test fair to the business. And we'd run sessions where a few of us testers would go along, and we'd sit in an architecture team meeting, and we'd just drop the cards out and start talking about stability, or we'd go and talk to the business relations team and talk about user experience, and just try and ignite those conversations where they suddenly go, I never knew you testers could do so much. I never realized you had so much value to the business. And suddenly, just by igniting that conversation with each other, you then were able to start, building those relationships up. And that leads on very nicely to the finding your allies. So once you've started building those relations and you've presented a few times and shown the business what you're all about, people will start to come out of the woodwork and go, you know what you were describing in that meeting, I could really relate to it. And I'd like to learn more. Can we go for coffee sometime and we can talk about it a bit more? And suddenly, you go and sit and have a coffee with them, and you'd start talking through some of the things you were trying to do. And they go, yeah, I really understand that. Could you help me with this? I've been trying to do some testing for the last few months. I had one particular person who was like, I've been developing these SAP changes on and off for the last 2 years. Every time they go live, something else breaks, and I feel like I'm missing something. Could you sit down with me and just show me what your approach would be? And I sat down with him and we drew out this matrix of all the possible parameter combinations for the bits he was doing. And we worked through and identified which ones were key and which ones needed to be tested. He went away and did the testing, and he came back and it was like, you know what, I did a release last week and there's been no issues. It's the first time in 2 years I've done that. And suddenly, you know, he's then advocating for you with the wider business. He's talking to others. How can we, you know, we need to talk to Simon and his team more to get them involved. And that spread. Suddenly you get 3 or 4 other people come up to you and go, oh, can you help us identify how we do this testing? Or can one of you come and sit on this project? Or we've got this small change coming through and we realize that we need to get some testing done before it goes in. Could we book some time with you? And we go through that. And you know, yes, you need to be able to take all the requests, but that's just the start of, once you can identify there's a demand, you could then say, look, we need to have someone available to come and sit and talk to these people and help with their testing and help them improve the quality of their releases. And it just, the more people that believe in that message, the more people can then spread that word, and it stands a better chance of being heard in the wider business. And soon we were in a place where projects were not kicking off unless there was a representative from the QA team, so that they could start at that point, start talking about environments and the testing they need to do, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, it's then about speaking the language of the business. So being able to look at quality in a way the business would understand. So, you know, I take the element of working for an airline, particularly the digital space where we're working on the website and stuff. Quality to our stakeholders and our business is, does our website look aesthetically pleasing enough that people are going to want to book tickets through our website? Is it going to work well enough that they're going to be able to go through the booking funnel without any particular problems? How can we ensure that that conversion rate is as high as possible from people that view the website to people that book flights? And it's just making sure that you've got those words in place for how the business needs to understand quality. And if you can demonstrate to them what good quality looks like and bad quality looks like in that particular industry. So, and I'll take the example of the airlines again. There's been quite a few over the last 10 years or so, quite public technology failures within the airline world, not necessarily website related, but within, you know, baggage handling systems or in-flight computer systems that have gone wrong or shown errors in certain situations. And they're very good conversations, whether you know whether you know or not that it was down to a testing issue. You can hypothesize and have that conversation of, if we'd have done the right level of testing in this scenario, do you think this issue would have happened? If we'd have identified the scenarios around the baggage handling system that caused the issue, we could have tested this to a level that we wouldn't have had that issue in production. And just starting those conversations, they start to see the value of what testing can bring. And then you start having that in with it. I like this diagram from Louise Gibbs that she put. I thought it was a really simple way of displaying what perceived quality looks like to the users. So whether depending on the level of you're working at or the business are at, you can certainly articulate how best it comes through. Yeah, and then it's really just about making your process visible. So you've got people on board, you've got people advocating for you, you've got a passionate team. It's then about doing things and making the team aware of, making the wider teams aware of what you can do. So just some of the things we put in place were, we improved the test automation to some level. We had a lot more automation around the mobile app and the website. Performance was automated as well. I built this risk-based testing metric that helped us identify where the system was in a good place and where it wasn't. And we built this testability assessment in as well. So all requirements were, we had a testability review where the requirements documents were assessed one by one. Can we test this requirement? Can we identify a test case for that requirement? So yeah, and then it's just demonstrating this to the business, finding ways to show them what's going on, finding ways to identify how it will improve the quality, and then ensure everyone understands that value of how measuring quality is and what we can do with that. And if you can show this, then they can get a really good picture of what's working and what's not, and that they're as keen to find out about this stuff as you are. But the key thing with that really is to get the feedback. So regularly ask for feedback from the business, send out surveys, talk to people, grab people for coffee and say, that thing we rolled out last week, how did it land? Were you happy with what we did? Do you see the value in what we're doing? And not being afraid to ask those questions. And sometimes it can just be a case of you roll stuff out and never hear anything. So you don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. And not everything's going to land well. There's going to be people in the business that don't think you're doing the right thing, that might come from a different viewpoint, a different perspective. And they just want to, they want things to stay the way they've always stayed. So they don't want to see all this change happening. They get nervous when things are taken away. Like, let's say a regression process is taken away, it's seen as a safety net to releases. You take that band-aid away and you say, right, the teams are now responsible for testing their own work. And suddenly, there's a lot of mindset shifting that needs to happen quite quickly. And sometimes those processes need to fail before they succeed, and it needs people to come together and work through it. They're going to cause negative feedback from some people because they're not going to want to make those changes. It's going to be too much hard work, and there's going to be too much fear that something's going to blow up in production if we don't have that 3,000 test case regression phase that happens after all the releases happen. And trust me, there are places that still do that. So yeah, just trying to get that feedback and understanding where you're coming from. But with that, the really important thing is it will be a journey. Things won't change overnight. There will be really rocky patches where things don't seem to be going well and people aren't really getting it. But equally, things will improve. If you take it one step at a time, one change at a time, and not try and do everything at once. And even then, don't do continuous changes one after the other without some kind of gap between, because otherwise you never really get that time to assess that things are actually placing well. So do something, then maybe wait a week or two before you start rolling the next one out, just to give you a couple of weeks to understand whether it's going well, it's getting the results you need it to get, it's providing the feedback you need. And once you've got those bits in place, you will then be able to move on to the next one, confident that you've moved things forward. And the other thing to remember is a culture doesn't have a definitive end. So you may be making changes. You may have that aspirational view of where you want to get to, but there's no harm in you being a year into trying to get there that you decide to change the goalposts, because you have to adapt with the way the company's going as well. Your culture of quality needs to be brought into the business values, the business direction, and it needs to directly map to that. If it doesn't, if you stick on going down one path when the business is going down another, that's going to cause even more friction. And you as a quality organization are not necessarily going to be able to change the mindset of the business. So it's about sharing your learning, sharing your journey, sharing your aspirations, and hope and working with them to make sure that you're on the same path. And that having someone that can help shape the business can be a really tough thing to do, but it is possible, and you can start to change the mindset of the right direction. So I put this model together, which really brings everything I've discussed together, really. So you set the quality narrative and vision, you engage the team, you get them focused, you share the vision and the passion with the wider business. You then build those relationships and find the allies, and then you drive process improvements through. And this is a continuous cycle. You continuously go through a fact of, you check the first change and then you go around it again. And it's just constantly trying to evolve and get to a place where everyone feels like you're in the same place. Everyone feels like you're on the same page, and you're moving forward in the right direction. You're getting to a point where automation is the first approach. You may get to a point where exploratory testing is part of the process, and rather it being just manual scripts, you move to a more exploratory testing charter process. It may be that you've got your CI pipelines defined. It may be that you've got testers involved in code reviews or in requirements reviews before a project kicks off. It's just depends on where you want to go as a business. It's about finding the right place for quality and testing in your organization. Just some of the inspirations that have got me here. So leading quality, as I mentioned earlier, managing the test people as well. Really good book. Probably looks at more organizations that are in slightly more traditional models where you have dedicated teams of testers. But it's a really good book to help get those testers embedded in teams and to get the test managers aligned more with development and engineering managers and having the same view. And then from a podcast sense, I love a good podcast. the three that I would recommend more than anything else is the Quality Coaching Roadshow, Testing in the Pub, which hasn't had any new episodes for a while, but there's about 100 or so episodes that Dan Ashby and Stephen Janaway did, and they are all really good listens. And then Testing One-on-One with Rob Lambert and Joel Montefiliski from Practice Test. Again, really good podcast, really help move things in the right direction, and challenge topics. And obviously I'd say Testing Peers as well, but I may be a little bit biased with that one. And that are all my slides. So thank you very much for listening. I'm more than happy to take questions. Yeah, I'll stop sharing and we can have a chat.
Thank you very much, Simon. So we had one question from Aurelian. You want to ask yourself?
Yeah, Simon, if I'm not wrong, in one of your slides, you wrote that QA team owns quality. Is it correct?
So that was in the base slide of my QA narrative. It was where the team were at that point when we started. Was
okay.
It was seen that the QA team owned quality. They were responsible for quality. No one else in the business worried about quality. But it wasn't definitely not a model I want to move to. It's a one I want to move away from.
Okay, then you answered my question. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Was that?
I have a question.
Sure.
Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead. No, go on.
So how do you balance your day-to-day activity with those more, let's say, I don't know what you call it, like almost like what a preacher would be doing, right?
Political conversation. Yeah.
Political. Yes, something like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I've got to a place where I build the right team underneath me to be able to cover the day to day. Then my role really is advocating for them, being their support as far as everything they need, but then also looking at strategically and also being able to be that voice that challenges things. And it's just about, in the meetings where you're introduced to a new project, it's just stepping up and saying, have we thought about the quality of this? Have we thought about the user experience? Have we just being the one that's willing to ask the questions? And sometimes you won't get any bites, sometimes you will, and it's taking those bites and then working on those bites to try and get people to buy into what you're trying to do. And look, I talk about testing at every opportunity I can. I wear testing t-shirts around the office. I wear them on Zoom or whatever, so that it becomes something people want to ask questions about. And any opportunity.
You're doing it right now, yeah?
Yeah. So it's just a way to try and share that culture and share that passion. And people have started to go, if there's anything testing related, we need to go to Simon. And in an organization as big as EasyJet, when we've got nearly 1,000 people in our tech teams, having that responsibility of any testing related questions come to me is quite a tough one. But part of my challenge is to try and change that mindset and get people more doing that for themselves. So I'm willing to take that hit to try and bring everyone together. So yes, you're right. There is a balance, and finding that balance sometimes can be tough, but it's one of those battles I'm willing to try and work out to try and make sure we get the right message across.
Thank you. If anyone else has any question, you can just unmute yourself and ask, or write in the chat and I will read the question for you.
What's the balance that you have? Sorry. What's the balance that you have between automated, like QAs who do automation, and also exploratory testing? How does that work in the teams?
So at the moment at EasyJet, we're on a journey. We're moving away from a lot of, we've got patches of automation, and we've got quite a lot of manual testers. We've not got much exploratory. We've introduced an exploratory process over the last 3-4 months to try and move away from test scripts and into exploratory testing. We're hitting some resistance because there's a lot of testers that have been there a long time and they're used to writing scripts, and they feel like that's their value, is those scripts they've written that have been run for the last 3-4 years. So we're trying to move away from that, and we're trying to build up the automation practice, which is part of the reason why I hired a test architect to try and help build the automation in the right direction. So it's in the wrong balance at the moment. It's probably more manual than automation, but we are trying to flip that mindset to a point where automation first and complement that with exploratory testing and good testing practices.
And your goal is to automate within, like, I don't know if you work in sprints, but automate within the sprint or just in the end?
So the goal is to shift left and have automation as part of the sprint deliverables, and it's part of the responsibility of it's built in the definition of done, that a story is not done until it's been automated as well. And then it's also looking at performance and security testing and accessibility testing and bringing that into the sprint responsibilities as well, rather than relying on third parties to do that testing for us, which we do at the moment.
Okay.
Okay, we have a question from Gonzalo.
Okay.
They ask, what area or aspect of the testing process would you recommend as a good place to start when working on a company that doesn't have anything in place?
Oh, wow. I would start with exploratory testing. That would be my first point. Is even before you because if it's not got any testing process, a good chance there's no documentation either, or very limited documentation. So I think it would be a case of start with exploratory, find out about the system, and then start identifying the areas that need automation, the area and the aspects that need different performance testing, and just start building a strategy out from there. But I would start with exploratory, definitely. So read Explore It by Elizabeth Hendrickson and start applying some of the practices that she suggests in that book.
Thank you very much. Ashutosh is asking, oh, do you want to ask yourself? Yes, sure, go ahead.
Yes, so I was just typing, and I believe it doesn't give me an opportunity to have it in paragraphs, I believe, and every enter is actually putting it in the chat. No worries. So what I was getting into is I have been seeing the same change that Simon has, started off with. So when, if let's say, Simon, you're taking responsibility of getting into such a role of which is actually self-appointed, and you're trying to change that mindset actually. So my first question is, who actually is owning these practices? Okay, because whenever we are in our teams, we are doing it, people are coming or saying things like why we don't have these things documented, and secondly, why are you or someone who's trying to implement something good is not who are you in authority actually to say some things like these? And second question is, what if you're when you're trying to build a culture of quality, what if someone is hijacking your movement? Because I have seen this happening firsthand, that people do talk about it a lot, but then when it actually comes in getting in the responsibility and owning it as a team or as person, and not going with that 3,000 test cases and regression, they fail pretty miserably, and they have been not owning the quality, to be honest. And lastly, there was okay, please go ahead and
I'll answer your first two. So first one, it requires sort of my leadership, so non-testing leadership positions, to really support and back what you're trying to do. So one of the first people you need to get buy-in from is, for me at the moment, it's the director of technology, who is a big advocate for testing in the right way, which is a good thing. So he's given me free rein to start building the right practices out. So that's you need people at a senior level to buy into it, so that when people do start challenging, why is Simon going around telling everyone about this testing practice that we've never done before? It feels very, very risky for us. The director of technology steps in and goes, well, I trust Simon. He's done a lot of good work since he's been here. We've improved the practice. We're improving the quality of the systems. If he thinks it's a good thing, then let's at least try it. And just having that senior person to back you really helps. If you haven't got that backing, that's a lot more tricky to try and get any movements going. And it's then on you to try and demonstrate to the senior leadership team the value that it can provide. And you will have challenges. And to your second question, I definitely had people that were trying to derail my ideas in my last role, and I've had a few in my current role as well, where people have tried to push back and say it's not going to work. People have gone behind my back and tried to sort of badmouthed me to my boss in my previous role, saying that, you know, I was destroying the team morale, etc., because we were trying to change everything at once. It wasn't what I was doing at all. And yeah, so it's the way I've always gone through that is smile through the, you know, smile with gritted teeth and carry on trying to do the good things. Eventually, good will come through. And that's always been something I've tried to do with that. But yes, look, it's not plain sailing. People will challenge you. Being prepared to accept criticism and feedback that may not be positive is a really important skill. And it's one that I'm very good at in the workplace, but I'm not so good at home, which is a different issue. But yeah, it's I accept that things aren't going to sit well with everybody. And sometimes it's just about getting a few people on board with it and trying it out and then seeing how it goes, and not trying to convert everyone on day one.
Yes, and lastly, what or how, you know, when there are heated conversations and people are, you know, actually they're locking their mindset and they are having huge conflicts. How do you do that? Because I've seen people who had been doing really good work and then they lost interest in the product itself, that they don't see a motive, or you can say they don't see themselves as motivated after there are these changes coming, because in the previous setup they were doing really good. They were, you know, being you can say awarded and recognized pretty well, and then they see you as a threat.
Yeah, I agree. And it is I think the most important thing is to try and diffuse the situation in the moment. If there's emotion, it's getting heated, then first of all, as a leader, my responsibility is to try and diffuse the situation so that it's not causing a scene in a wider audience, for a wider audience. But on the practice perspective, it really is about, okay, they're uncomfortable with changing process. Well, why are you uncomfortable? What is it that you're really concerned about? And if it's just a case of, but I'm good at running these manual tests. I've built these together over the last 5 years. I know what I'm doing. It feels like a comfort zone thing. At that point, for me, you do your best work when you're on the edge of your comfort zone, leaning into being outside of your comfort zone. And it's that thing of pushing someone a little bit towards the edge of their comfort zone sometimes can get uncomfortable, and they push back. But actually, it's nurturing them through the change. And it's giving them the ability to lead that change. If they're uncomfortable about it, fine, you can be uncomfortable about it. But what can we do? What can you do to try and help drive that process to improve it? What could you do that would make your day job better? Could we automate most of your tests so that you could actually spend some time investigating the system rather than running the same mundane scripts every day? That may work for some people. It may not. But it's just a case of, you know, trying to challenge them as well, not just letting them kick off and saying, I'm not going to change my ways. Because if the company are moving in one direction, then you want everyone on that journey with you. You want people to be behind you. You want them to buy into it. You don't want them to be the ones pushing back. Having people outside your team pushing back is different. That's almost understandable. But if you've got people within your test team, or testers or developers within your sprint teams that are really against the process, then you need to face that head on and try and work through why they're uncomfortable about it and find ways to improve that.
I believe that you have like different teams and different QAs working within the teams. How equal is the process in those teams, or like, do you have any margin to then just adapt the process within teams?
We're trying to move to a model where any tester can do any type of testing, but obviously we're not there at the moment. We have different capabilities in different areas. We're trying to build performance champions into the teams at the moment. So that's taking current testing and developers and assigning one or two of them in each group as performance champions, so that they have a responsibility to performance testing and the performance of the systems. And we're trying to take that champions model as a way forward, security champions, accessibility champions, so that people feel that they have a focus as well as their day job that can help them and enhance their skills. So yes, you might have people that are specialists on accessibility or security or performance, but the idea is majority of the testing anyone can do together, whether it be developers doing the automation, all sitting down and devising the test cases together, or the test charters together. and just building that mindset of collective quality across the group. But yeah, we have different skill sets at the moment, but we want to empower the testers to learn the skills they want to learn, but build the team up together.
What do you feel was the key step to like change the culture inside the squads or the teams?
Listening to the teams, finding out where their pain points were, and showing that we're on that journey together, and trying to, that first step of identifying, getting them to sit down and tell me what wasn't working well from a testing perspective and where they felt their value was, and then working together on solutions. This is never that was the key. If I'd have come in and gone, right, this is the change we're making, this is the only thing we're doing, it's the way I want to do it, I wouldn't have got any buy-in. It really was about taking it from them, that this is the way that they feel comfortable going, and then trying to enhance that with them and evolving it into a bigger piece. So I think that was the key step for me, was actually getting the team engaged and getting them on board with the changes.
Thank you. Gonzalo had a follow-up question about, you said you probably have to start with documentation. So they are asking, do you have any tools or things like BDD that you can recommend for test cases, business rules, requirements, things like that?
I wouldn't go down specific tools for that. I mean, with BDD, I mean, Cucumber's a good one to get started with, but and that stuff. But yeah, I haven't got any particular tools on that area. I tend to go down the route of using exploratory testing tools to develop my charters based on that. So yeah, and even with that, there's a few tools out there that help you build your exploratory testing notes. I'm thinking Test Buddy's one, where you can build your charters and your information, your documents from that, and that's how I would go. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
No worries.
Rosine, you had a question. Do you want to ask yourself?
Okay, thank you so much, Simon. My question was, I was just, sometimes there's a project that I'm working on, and I used to, like, when I write scripts for automation, I used to run them like locally, and then after I run them on CI. So I would like to know, like, between both, like, because sometimes there's that leader to run them like on the Sarcos CI and just to leave it locally. But it's just a question that is still wondering, like, when I run them the script like locally, that's how like the test passes, and then after I run them on Sarcos CI. I just wanted to understand like the overview, running them on the cloud and also locally, what would be like the best way to assure the quality of the script. Yeah.
I think it depends on the context of what you're testing. So if what you're testing is, it comes down to the environment you have set up. If your environment requires you to be on a particular kind of interface that you can't get to from your local machine, then, or it isn't connected in the same way on your local machine, then you'd need to go through a cloud setup to do that. It really does depend on that. I think there's value in running things locally when you're developing them and first running your tests, but I think ultimately it needs to be on your own local machine can't be the single point of execution, because if it passes on your machine and then it goes into production and it fails, the questions will be asked, well, did you test it on the right setup? So definitely think you need to make sure whatever setup you're running on is the same as production, or as close to production as you can get for that particular instance. And by all means, run it on your local machine as well.
But what is weird is that when you're running them on production, that's when they fail. But when you begin like running them locally and then when all of them passes and you're running them on production, that's when like all of them works, like passes. But if you're running them on production before like running them on locally, they used to fail. So I was thinking that if you're testing them like locally first and you're sure that all of them working perfectly and passes, and then that's when like you can move on and run them on production. Yeah, I just wanted to, but
Yeah.
thank you for your point of view.
Okay.
Also with time, there is a certain set of problems that happen with lag and things like that. So if you have the perfect setup locally and the test is working just as you expect, and then you run it through the cloud and it doesn't work anymore, it usually has something to do with timings and things like that. Maybe you have a stronger machine locally than whatever is provisioned through the cloud, or maybe there is a different kind of VPN in between or something like that. And then usually things like increasing wait times can give you an idea on where the issue is coming from. Okay, does anyone have any other questions?
I have also one question, Simon.
Sure.
Thank you very much for your talk. How do you organize your community of praxis? Do you have a weekly meeting with some talks, or do you meet 1 month or other? And it was the first question. And the second question, how you motivate people to participate there? Not only that you have a talk, but also that other participants, other quality assurance engineers, take topics or talks to this community.
So I do it monthly, but I do it slightly differently. That it's not just open to the testers. I open it to the whole of technology. So I have project managers, developers, development managers, BAs, everyone come along. And I tend at the moment, because we're still building up our practice internally, I tend to use my connections in the industry to get external speakers come in. And we've had talks on automation, we've had talks on post API testing, exploratory testing, security testing, accessibility. We've had the author of Leading Quality come and do a talk as well on building that culture. And it's just try and get people engaged, get speakers that are really engaging and exciting to listen to. And do an internal talk as well. So I might get one of the EasyJet test teams or EasyJet technology teams that do some testing, do something cool, to come and do a 10-minute demo of that first, and then have the external speaker. Generally, there's 200 or so people in the immediate technology team that I work with, and I get 60 or 70 people who attend most months. So it's just about varying the topics, making sure it's optional so people can come if they want to come. And obviously it's all been virtual, so it's completely optional. I record them as well so people can listen to them afterwards, and just try and make it a collaborative session. So we are going to try and look at different formats going forward and try and get more sort of interactive activities, like getting the TestSphere cards out and running some risk storming sessions or something like that. But yeah, it's just been at the moment just getting some engaging speakers, get them asking lots of questions and getting the audience engaged, and that's worked quite well so far. And it's caused people to want to learn more about testing, which is exactly my aim for it.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Thank you very much, Simon.
One more. If that's okay. Yeah, sure. Since we were talking about growing a culture of quality, do you have any metrics that you are sharing with wider teams? It could be in EasyJet or like in previous work.
Not related to actually growing the culture. It's the obvious one is, are we seeing less issues in production is always the key one that we work from. But yeah, it's just trying to standardize so that it's a language the business understands, so we're all using the same kind of metric. So that's where my risk-based testing metric comes in quite often. People outside of testing are now starting to ask, on projects, or I'd like to see that quality achieved value to see where we are with the testing. It's a language people are now starting to get comfortable understanding, so they're therefore asking questions about it, and that's the key. Whatever metrics you choose to go with, make sure they're outside of testing are understood as well.
All right, thank you.
Cool.
Okay, thank you very much. Simon, unless you have any last words, you can give it back to Diego.
No, all good from me. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, great questions, and of course answers as well.
Cool, thank you very much to Severin and to Simon for all the questions. I think this has been one of the sessions with the largest amount of questions, right? From my side, I just have to say again, thank you to Simon, because I was just thinking, like, Simon really knows the topic and knows a lot about it, because if you have two dogs next to you, like making noise and distracting you, but you still manage to continue the flow and talk naturally about it, then it's like, okay, this person really knows what they're talking about. So yeah, that was one of the most impressive things to me today.
Excellent. Glad it was useful.
Cool. Yeah, so let's start to wrap up this session for today. And just to let you all know, and for the ones who are watching the recording, all the details of the upcoming events and recordings and previous sessions, you can find them in continuoustestingmeetup.com. And hopefully, we don't have an event yet for October. We're finalizing some details, but thank you all for joining today, and we will share details for the event soon as we have it. And yeah, really happy to see this big amount of people today. Again, thank you for joining, and hope to see you in the next one. Bye.